The stars above the Zareth Empire's capital burned bright, but for the people below the night felt empty. The war had lasted too long, and every week new names were carved into the walls of memory. Soldiers, nobles, merchants, even children. No, one had been spared. But the greatest wound of all was the loss of Princess Elira, the only daughter of King Vale of Zareth. Her ship had vanished months ago during a battle in the frontier. The wreckage had been found, scattered across a ruined world. No survivors were detected. The Empire had mourned, and the king had locked himself in silence, his golden crown heavy with grief. To him, his daughter was gone forever. But the truth was very different. The crash Elira had not died when the ship fell. She had survived the crash, though barely. She remembered screaming metal, the fire of re-entry, the way her guards had tried to shield her. She had woken alone, surrounded by shattered glass and broken bones. Her side burned with pain, and her left arm was fractured. Didao, planet she had landed on, was no paradise. It was a scarred battlefield, its soil blackened by orbital bombardment. No forests, no cities, just ruins, smoke, and the distant sounds of war machines moving across the wasteland. For 3 days she wandered, injured and half-starved. Her royal training had not prepared her for this. She knew court politics, languages, and diplomacy, but not how to light a fire or hunt or even how to bandage a wound properly. By the 4th day, she was ready to give up. She sat against a ruined wall, vision fading, waiting for death. That was when she saw him. The human, he appeared like a shadow through the dust, tall and broad, carrying a crude spear he had fashioned from metal scraps. His armor was battered, marked with symbols she did not recognize, but his eyes were sharp, alert, and full of life. A human. Elira had heard of them before. Deathworlders. A primitive race that had risen from a dangerous, violent planet. The Empire did not deal with them often. They were considered useful mercenaries at best, reckless troublemakers at worst. The human looked at her with surprise, but not awe. He did not kneel, did not bow, did not even speak the respectful greeting, due to royalty. Instead, he crouched, studied her wounds, and muttered in his strange, rough language. "I don't know what you are," he said slowly, his words carrying a heavy accent. "But you're bleeding out. If you don't want to die, stay still." She tried to speak, to demand respect, but all that came out was a weak gasp. The human tore cloth from his own armor, wrapped her wound, and without asking permission, lifted her onto his back. Elira was too weak to resist. Uneasy survival. The human's name was Marcus Hale, a captain in the Terran Defense Fleet. He had been cut off from his unit when their transport was destroyed. For weeks he had survived alone on this cursed planet, scavenging food from ruins, drinking from broken pipes, and hunting small creatures that still crawled through the wasteland. Now he had Elira with him, and survival became harder. She was injured, unused to hardship, and often complained in her soft, noble voice. "This is unacceptable," she whispered one night as he lit a fire with sparks from stone. "I am princess of the Zareth Empire. My people will come for me." Marcus looked at her, his face unreadable in the glow. If they were coming, they'd be here already. She froze, anger rising. I dare to keep you alive," he interrupted, tone sharp. "Royalty means nothing here. You want to survive? Then eat, rest, and follow instructions." No one had spoken to Elira like that before. Her guards, her tutors, her father, they all treated her like fragile glass. But this human, this stranger, spoke to her as if she were just another person. She hated it. And yet, some part of her respected it. Learning the hard way days passed. Marcus taught Elira small things at first. How to wrap her arm with proper support. How to drink carefully so she didn't waste water. How to move quietly to avoid drawing attention. One evening, he showed her how to hold a weapon. He gave her a broken piece of metal shaped like a blade. "You'll need this," he said. "I am not a soldier," Elira replied. You are now, Marcus said simply. When enemy scouts passed nearby, Elira froze in fear, but Marcus moved like a predator. He struck quickly, silently, taking down 2 soldiers with his bare hands and their own knives. Elira had never seen anything like it. Her people fought with formation, honor, and discipline. This human fought like a beast unleashed. Afterward, when Marcus returned to the small fire, she asked softly, "How did you kill so easily?" He did not answer at first. Then he said, "Because if I don't, they kill me. Survival doesn't care about honor." The shift at first, Elira thought Marcus was brutal, even savage. But as days turned to weeks, she began to see more. He gave her the larger portion of food, even when he was hungry. He stood guard while she slept. He carried her when her legs gave out. And when she complained, oh, how she complained, he never abandoned her. Slowly, she changed. She forced herself to walk without his help. She ate food she once thought beneath her. She even practiced with the blade he had given her, her hands clumsy but determined. One night, after she had managed to strike down a small creature for food, Marcus actually smiled. "Not bad, princess," he said. To her surprise, the word no longer sounded mocking. The enemy approaches, but the war had not forgotten them. Patrols grew more frequent. Enemy ships circled overhead. Marcus knew it was only a matter of time before they were found. "We need to move," he said one morning. Elira, now walking with strength in her step, asked, "Where?" "There's an old comm station in the hills," he replied. "If we can repair it, maybe we can send a signal. Your people, or mine, someone might hear." Hope flickered in her chest. For the first time, escape seemed possible, but as they set out across the wasteland, Elira realized something else. The thought of leaving Marcus behind filled her with unease. He was rough, uncivilized, and utterly unlike her people. And yet, she no longer saw him as just a human. He was her protector, her partner in survival. She did not say it aloud, but deep inside, Elira knew. If she lived to see her father again, it would be because of the human by her side. The hills of the ruined world stretched ahead, broken by black craters and twisted steel. Princess Elira walked beside Marcus Hale, the human who had saved her life. Her steps were steadier now. Her royal clothes, once shining with the symbols of the Zareth Empire, were torn and dark with dirt. She no longer looked like a princess, she looked like a survivor. The comms station Marcus had spoken of was still days away. They had little food, little water, and enemies searching the wasteland. Every step felt dangerous, but Elira noticed something new in herself. She was no longer just following Marcus. She was learning from him. The lesson of fire on. Their second night in the hills, Marcus showed her how to build a fire without tools. He struck rocks together, sparks flying into dried grass. Soon, a small flame burned, warm and alive. Elira watched carefully. "My people, we would use plasma igniters." A single touch and the fire starts. Why struggle with stones? Marcus gave her a tired look. "Because igniters break, stones don't." She thought about that. In her palace, she had always believed technology was strength. But on this broken world, she saw that strength came from the hands, the will, and the mind. "Try it," Marcus said. Her hands shook at first, but she kept striking until a spark caught. When the fire rose, she felt a strange pride, as if she had taken her first step into a larger world. "Not bad, princess," Marcus said again. The hunt, the next morning, Marcus handed her a crude spear. "Time to get food." Elira frowned. "You expect me to hunt? Unless you want to starve," Marcus said simply. They tracked a small four-legged creature through the rubble. Elira hesitated, her noble heart rebelling at the thought of killing. But Marcus's voice came calm and firm. "You're not killing. You're surviving. Do it." She thrust the spear, clumsy but determined, and the creature fell. The shock of it made her chest tighten, but Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "Good," he said. That's one more day we live. For the first time, Elira realized survival was not something to be ashamed of. It was something to be proud of. The argument as the days passed. Their bond grew stronger, but so did their arguments. One evening after they had escaped a patrol, Elira confronted Marcus. "You speak to me as if I am nothing. Do you forget who I am? I am daughter of the Zareth throne." Marcus, sitting by the fire, stared at her with calm eyes. "Out here, you're not a princess. You're a person trying to live. Royal blood doesn't stop bullets. Titles don't. Feed you." His words cut her pride, but deep inside she knew he was right. "Still," she said softly, "you should show respect." Marcus gave a small laugh. "Respect is earned. Out here, you've started to earn mine." The words struck her harder than any insult. For the first time she wanted his respect, not because she was royal, but because she was Elira. The first battle together, their journey grew more dangerous. Enemy patrols circled the hills, searching for survivors. One night, under the pale light of the shattered moon, they were ambushed. Blaster fire lit the rocks as soldiers closed in. Elira froze at first, fear gripping her heart. But Marcus moved like lightning. He dragged her behind cover, handed her a weapon, and barked, "Shoot when they get close." She shook her head. "I cannot." "You can," he snapped. "You want to live? Do it!" The soldiers advanced. Marcus leapt from cover, throwing a knife into one, then crushing another with a brutal strike. His movements were savage, nothing like the disciplined drills of the Zareth army. He fought like the predators of his death world, quick, relentless, unstoppable. Elira's heart pounded. One soldier slipped past Marcus, rushing at her. Without thinking, she raised the weapon and fired. The blast struck true, and the enemy fell. She stared at the smoking weapon in her hands, trembling. She had killed for the first time. Marcus looked back, blood on his armor, and nodded. "Good, you're learning." Instead of shame, Elira felt something different. She felt alive. Shared stories that night as they rested in a ruined shelter. Elira asked Marcus about his people. "What is it like, your home?" she asked softly. Marcus leaned against the wall, eyes distant. "Earth? Dangerous. We grew up fighting the planet itself. Storms, beasts, sickness, everything tried to kill us, but it made us strong." Elira listened in silence. She had always been told humans were reckless and uncivilized, but now she saw something else. They were survivors, shaped by a world harsher than anything she had known. "And you?" Marcus asked. She hesitated. "I grew up in a palace. I was taught to rule, to command, but never to fight. My father wanted me safe, untouched by war, but out here that safety is worthless." Marcus studied her with calm eyes. "Maybe, but you're changing. You're tougher than you think." Her heart warmed at his words. For the first time, she wondered if this human saw her not as a fragile princess, but as something more. Trust forged in danger as they neared the hills. The comm station finally came into sight. It was a broken tower of metal leaning against the sky. Hope surged in Elira's chest, but danger followed. A larger enemy force was sweeping the area. They had little time. "We'll have to fight through," Marcus said, checking his weapons. Elira swallowed hard. "Fight? With you?" He looked at her firmly. "I can't do this alone. I need you." The words struck her deeply. No one had ever needed her for survival, only for politics and power. But this human needed her, trusted her. "I will not fail," she said, gripping her weapon. The stand at the station. The battle was brutal. Enemy soldiers closed in as Marcus and Elira fought side by side. He moved with deadly precision, striking from shadows and using traps he had set earlier. She fought with growing courage, holding the line when he was outnumbered. At one point, a soldier almost struck Marcus from behind, but Elira lunged forward, her blade flashing. She saved him, her heart racing with pride. "Not bad, princess," Marcus shouted, his voice fierce with approval. Together, they reached the comm station. Marcus began repairing the console with quick, skilled hands. Elira covered him, firing at enemies who tried to break through. Her body trembled, but her will did not. Finally, the console sparked to life. A signal was sent, faint but strong enough to reach the stars. They had a chance. The silent moment. When the battle ended, the ground was littered with bodies. Elira dropped her weapon, breathing hard. Marcus stood beside her, his face streaked with dirt and blood. For a moment, there was only silence between them. Then Elira spoke softly. "Today I was not a princess. I was your partner." Marcus looked at her, and for the first time his eyes softened. "Yeah," he said. "You were." The signal was sent, but hope did not come quickly. Days passed and no rescue ships arrived. The ruined comms station flickered with weak energy, its antenna groaning against the harsh wind. Marcus Hale and Princess Elira remained in the wasteland, waiting, watching, and fighting to survive. But something had changed between them. Elira was no longer the frightened noble who had stumbled through ruins. She carried her weapon with steady hands. She spoke less of her father's palace and more of the ground they must cross tomorrow. She still wore the blood of royalty, but now it was mixed with the scars of survival. And Marcus, once a lone predator, had begun to trust her. He moved more easily with her at his side. He no longer looked at her as someone to protect alone, but as someone who could fight beside him. The bond between them was growing stronger, but so was the danger. The enemy sweep. The enemy had detected the signal. Marcus had known it would happen. A beacon strong enough to call for rescue was also strong enough to attract hunters. One morning, the sky filled with the roar of engines. Dropships descended across the hills, spilling soldiers into the ruins. Hundreds of troops spread out in careful lines, searching every shadow. Marcus and Elira watched from a ridge. "They know we're here," Elira whispered. "Yeah," Marcus said, his eyes sharp. "And they're not leaving until they find us." They could not outrun such numbers. They could not hide forever. Marcus's jaw tightened. "We'll have to fight our way out." Elira's heart pounded. The thought of facing hundreds of soldiers was madness. But Marcus's voice carried no fear, only cold, focused determination. "Then we fight," Elira said, surprising herself. Marcus gave her a short nod. "Good." The gathering of stragglers as they moved through the ruins, they found others. Alien survivors from shattered fleets, soldiers, workers, refugees, beaten down and hopeless. Most had been hiding alone, waiting for death. When Marcus found them, he did not speak like a noble or a commander. He spoke like a survivor. "You want to live?" he growled to a group of wounded Zareth soldiers. "Then stand with us. Hiding won't save you. Fighting might." The aliens hesitated, glancing at Elira. When they recognized her, their eyes widened in shock. "Princess, you live?" one whispered. Elira lifted her chin. "I live, and I fight, but not alone. This human, Marcus Hale, has kept me alive. Follow him, and you will survive too." Her words carried weight. Slowly, the broken survivors gathered. A dozen at first, then 2 dozen. By nightfall, nearly 40 stood with them. They were weak, underarmed, and afraid. But under Marcus's command, they began to move with purpose. The humans' tactics. Marcus studied the maps on a cracked data pad, his mind sharp as a blade. "They'll expect us to run," he explained to the group. "So we won't. We'll hit them where they don't expect. Small strikes, fast and brutal. We bleed them, then vanish before they can pin us down." The aliens looked doubtful. To them, war meant formations, honor, and open battle. But Marcus ignored their doubts. He taught them how to set traps with wires and explosives from scavenged parts. He showed them how to fight from shadows, how to retreat and strike again, how to use the land itself as a weapon. Elira watched with fascination. His style was nothing like the war schools of her empire. He fought like Earth itself had taught him, wild, cunning, and merciless. And as the days passed, the survivors began to believe. The first strike. The first ambush came at dusk. A squad of enemy soldiers moved through a ruined street, scanning, with scanners and lights. Marcus waited until they were deep inside the trap. Then a hidden charge exploded, collapsing a wall on their flank. Survivors rushed from hiding, firing from all sides. Elira fought beside them, her blade flashing as she struck down an enemy who charged too close. Her heart raced with fear and fire, but she did not falter. The battle lasted only minutes. When it ended, a dozen enemies lay dead and not a single survivor had fallen. The aliens stared in shock. Never had they won so cleanly, so quickly. This is not war," one whispered. "No," Marcus said, his voice cold. "This is survival." Fire in the hills, the days turned into a nightmare for the enemy. Every patrol they sent into, the hills vanished. Every squad was cut down by traps, ambushes, or brutal strikes in the night. The survivors, once hopeless, now fought with fire in their eyes. They followed Marcus without question, inspired by his fearlessness. And they looked to Elira as their banner, their symbol of hope. She was no longer just a princess. She fought in the mud beside them, bled beside them, killed beside them. Her people began to whisper her name with pride once more. And always, Marcus was at her side. The bond deepens one night. After a long battle, Elira sat by the fire, her hands trembling as she cleaned her weapon. Marcus sat across from her, silent as always. Finally, she spoke. "Why do you fight this way? So fierce, so without fear?" Marcus's eyes flickered. "Because fear doesn't help. On Earth, if you're weak, you die. Simple as that." Elira studied him, her chest tightening. "And yet, you protect me, even when I slow you down. Why?" Marcus was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, "Because leaving someone behind isn't how humans survive. We fight for each other. Always." Elira felt her throat tighten. She had been taught that loyalty was to the empire, to the throne. But Marcus's loyalty was deeper, sharper. He fought not for empires, but for the person beside him. For her. The great push. The enemy grew desperate. Frustrated by constant losses, they began to tighten their grip. Dozens of squads moved in together, sweeping wide arcs through the hills. The survivors had nowhere left to run. Marcus gathered them in the ruins of an old factory. His eyes were hard. "They're closing in. If we stay, we die. If we run, they'll hunt us down. So we break through. One push, straight through their line. Hit them harder than they expect, then vanish before reinforcements come." It was madness. The survivors murmured in fear. But Elira rose, her voice strong. "He has led us this far. He has saved us. Trust him now, or die in silence." The fear turned to resolve. The survivors gripped their weapons, ready for the fight, the breakthrough. The night exploded with fire. Marcus led the charge, striking like a storm. Explosives tore holes in the enemy lines, and the survivors poured through, fighting with a fury. Born of desperation, Elira fought at Marcus's side, her blade flashing in the dark. She no longer froze at the sight of blood. She fought with purpose, with strength. The enemy reeled in shock. These survivors, these broken stragglers, fought with the ferocity of predators. And at their heart was a single human. His every strike, a reminder of why Deathworlders were feared. At the climax, Elira saved Marcus. An enemy soldier aimed a rifle at his back, but Elira lunged, her blade piercing true. Marcus turned, eyes meeting hers, and for a moment there was no war, no empire, only the bond between them. Together they broke through the line. The survivors scattered into the night, free once more. The signal heard as dawn rose. Marcus and Elira stood on a ridge overlooking the battlefield they had left behind. Smoke curled from the ruins. The enemy was retreating, regrouping, humiliated by their failure to crush a ragged band of survivors. Elira breathed hard, her body aching, but her spirit fierce. "We live," she whispered. "For now," Marcus said. But then, in the distance, a new sound filled the sky. Ships. Not enemy ships. Different ones. The comms signal had been heard. Rescue was coming. Elira's heart leapt. She would see her father again. She would return to her people. But as she looked, at Marcus standing tall and silent beside her, she felt a strange ache in her chest. She did not want to return alone. The Zareth Empire had never felt so silent. The capital's golden spires rose like proud teeth into the sky, gleaming under a pale sun. Yet inside the royal palace a shadow loomed. King Vale sat upon his throne, staring at the empty corridors. Months had passed since his daughter, Princess Elira, was declared lost. Every night he had dreamed of her death. Every morning he had woken with the same hollow ache. And then the message came, a transmission, faint but unmistakable, from the frontier world where she had crashed. Elira was alive. Alive. And coming. Home. The King's Council erupted in chaos. Courtiers whispered about the strange humans rumored to roam the wastelands, about Captain Marcus Hale, the one who had survived alongside her. Many nobles considered him unworthy, dangerous, even a threat to the Empire itself. But Vale's heart had no time for politics. His daughter lived. That was all that mattered. The return journey, Elira and Marcus traveled aboard a small Imperial cruiser sent to retrieve her. The journey was long and Elira spent it in silence, staring out at the stars. Marcus noticed the faraway look in her eyes, the tight set of her jaw, and said nothing. At night, the princess would sometimes whisper memories of the wasteland, the fire they had built, the patrols they had ambushed, the nights she had spent, scared and shivering, only to wake beside him knowing she was safe. She began once, voice quiet. "I don't know how I survived it all without you." Marcus only nodded, understanding the weight of what she had said. No one had ever said it aloud before. Elira's survival had been expected, assumed, but she had not survived alone. She had survived with him. The palace gates. The cruiser landed at the capital's main gates. Soldiers and courtiers lined the streets, their expressions a mix of awe, fear, and disbelief. Word had spread quickly. Elira was alive. The princess returned from the dead. As Elira stepped from the cruiser, she looked different. Her clothes were still worn, patched, and burned in places. Her hair was tangled, her face marked by scars and dirt. But her eyes burned with fire. She was no longer the delicate figure of courtly portraits. She was a warrior, tempered by the fires of survival, and beside her walked Marcus Hale, the human who had kept her alive. The crowd gasped. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a storm. Some nobles looked at Marcus with contempt, others with fear. A human, an outsider, walking beside the heir of the Zareth Empire. It was unheard of. Elira ignored the murmurs. She had lived too long, fought too hard, to bow to whispers now. Her gaze searched the gates for one person only. Her father. The king's reaction, King Vale stood at the throne room balcony, watching the approach of his daughter. His breath caught when he saw her, scarred, determined, alive. Relief and disbelief battled across his face. For months he had mourned, and now she returned, and yet his eyes fell on the human beside her. Shock, confusion, and anger flickered in the king's gaze. "Who is this?" he demanded as Elira entered the hall. Elira straightened, her voice steady. "Father, this is Marcus Hale. He kept me alive." The court erupted in murmurs. Some called for the human to be thrown out. Others stared, unsure what to think. Marcus, tall and silent, bowed his head slightly in respect, not fear. Vale's hand tightened on his throne. A human? By your side? Yes, Elira said firmly. Without him, I would not be here. The king's heart ached. He wanted to be furious, but all he could feel was gratitude and a deep, gnawing fear. This human had changed his daughter. She was no longer the same princess he had raised. The political storm. The nobles were not so understanding. They whispered about Marcus behind their hands. Some called him a barbarian, a savage, a spy. Others warned the king that this human's influence over Elira could disrupt the empire's stability. Elira confronted them with a calm fierceness they had never seen. You call him unworthy, she said. But he is the reason I stand alive today. You claim loyalty to the empire, yet you abandoned your own soldiers. He protected us when you would not. And now you question him? The hall fell silent. Her voice, once soft and polite, now carried authority. Her words cut through centuries of tradition like a blade. The nobles did not like it, but they could not deny the truth. The test of Worth Vale finally spoke. If this human is truly as capable as you say, he must prove it. He will be tested, and if he passes, he may remain by your side. If not, then I will not leave him, Elira interrupted. Her eyes blazed. He saved my life, my honor, and my strength. He stays. The king stared at his daughter. She was no longer the child who had run from danger. She had grown, hardened, and learned things he could not teach her. And he could not deny her command. Very well, Vile said. He will be tested. But understand this, Elira. If he fails, it is not just his life at stake, but yours. Elira nodded. She understood. And Marcus, standing silently beside her, only smiled faintly. He was ready. Marcus's first test, the test was simple in theory but deadly in practice. The Empire's security forces staged a simulated battle in the palace training grounds. Marcus was to lead a squad of Zareth soldiers against elite trainers, using his human tactics. The nobles watched, skeptical. Humans were untested, unpredictable. Could he command alien soldiers? Could he survive against the Empire's best? Marcus's strategy shocked everyone. Instead of marching in formation, he scattered the squad into small mobile teams. He used traps and terrain, feints and ambushes, confusing the elite trainers. Every move was calculated, yet chaotic to those who had only studied textbook tactics. At the end of the exercise, the elite trainers lay defeated, exhausted and humiliated. The nobles could not believe it. A human had bested the Empire's finest, not with superior numbers or technology, but with cunning, speed, and sheer instinct. Elira watched, pride swelling in her chest. Marcus had proven himself, and more than that, he had proven the truth she had always known. Humans were different but powerful in ways the Empire had not yet understood. The daughter's command, after the test. Elira addressed the court. My father may rule by blood and the Empire by tradition, she said, but strength comes in many forms. Marcus Hale fought by my side, and he is worthy of our respect, not because he is human, but because he is brave, loyal, and alive. These are qualities our Empire claims to value. He possesses them, and I will not abandon him. The court remained tense, but murmurs shifted from anger to reluctant acceptance. Many could not forget the human's deeds, nor Elira's unwavering stance. Weil looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and fear. She had changed the court, and perhaps the Empire itself. A new understanding. That night, Elira and Marcus stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The palace gardens were silent, the fountains still, the golden spires reflecting the last rays of sun. You have made a powerful empire see the truth, Marcus said quietly. Elira smiled, a little tired but strong. No, you made me see it. First, you taught me that survival is not about titles or gold, it is about strength, loyalty, and courage. I brought that lesson home. Marcus nodded. And now the Empire will learn it too. Elira placed a hand on his arm. By my side. Always. For Marcus, the words were simple, but they carried more weight than any medal or honor. He had survived a wasteland, fought impossible odds, and now walked beside a princess who had become a warrior. Together, they were a force neither the Empire nor the galaxy would forget. The Zareth Empire had changed. The streets of the capital buzzed with rumors of the princess's return, of the human who had saved her, and of the unexpected victories their forces had achieved with his guidance. For some, the idea of a human wielding influence in the Empire was unsettling. For others, it was a promise of new strength. Inside the palace, Princess Elira and Marcus Hale stood before King Vael. The king had summoned the council and the military leaders to hear a report. On the frontier, Elira's face was calm, her body poised, yet her mind raced. The time had come to prove that humans were not to be underestimated, and that she had brought one home. The final report, Elira stepped forward, voice steady. Father, the frontier, forces have been strengthened. With Marcus's strategies, our soldiers survived attacks that would have annihilated them. The enemy has suffered losses greater than we anticipated. Their morale is broken, and they fear what they do not understand. The council murmured. A human had commanded strategy that was unheard of. Some whispered that the princess had been influenced, that she had lost the decorum and caution of royalty. Marcus stood beside her, silent, arms crossed. His presence was calm but imposing. Every eye in the room studied him, noting his height, the scars on his face, the way he carried himself with quiet authority. The king's dilemma. King Vael rose from his throne, golden robes flowing, his expression stern. You speak of victories, Elira, yet the galaxy does not trust humans. They see them as unpredictable, dangerous. Can we truly rely on one among us, one not born of Zareth blood? Elira did not flinch. Father, it is not about blood. It is about skill, loyalty, and courage. Marcus Hale risked his life for me. He has led our soldiers to victory. His actions speak louder than tradition ever could. Vael's eyes softened, but concern remained. The human beside his daughter was unlike anything he had known. He had seen Marcus in combat reports, seen him survive impossible situations, yet he wondered if one mistake could bring disaster. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm, unwavering. I fight for those who fight for me. I do not ask for trust, because I am human. I ask for it because I have earned it. If the Empire refuses, the enemy will take advantage. But if you follow my strategies, you will survive and thrive. A silence filled the room. The words were simple, but their meaning was profound. The test of unity, soon. The frontier called again. The enemy, desperate to crush the Zareth forces, had launched a massive assault. Thousands of soldiers descended on the territory, expecting to annihilate the scattered Zareth troops. Marcus and Elira led the preparation. The survivors from the wasteland were ready, soldiers trained in human tactics, combining alien technology with human cunning. Elira herself inspected the lines, giving orders, moving among her people with confidence. The council watched from a secure balcony. Some were skeptical, others fearful, but all could see that the princess was no longer fragile or naive. She had grown into a commander. Marcus surveyed the battlefield with sharp eyes. Remember this, he told the soldiers. Fight smart, fight together, and fight for each other. If we do, no enemy can stop us. The battle begins. The enemy advanced, armor glinting under the sun, their formation perfect, their confidence absolute. But the first wave met chaos. Mines hidden in craters exploded. Blaster fire came from unexpected angles. Entire squads vanished into ambushes while scouts reported impossible tactics. The Zareth soldiers were stunned. Marcus moved through them like a storm, shouting orders, reorganizing units, predicting enemy movements. Elira fought at his side, coordinating flanks, inspiring her people. Her presence was electric. Where the enemy expected fear, they found courage. Where they expected retreat, they found unity. And at the center of it all was a human they had once called primitive, now the pivot of their strategy. The turning point hours into the battle, the enemy commander realized they were being outmaneuvered. Their superior numbers meant nothing against unpredictable tactics. They struck hard at Marcus's position, thinking to end the human threat first. Elira was there, blocking the path with soldiers beside her. The enemy pressed, but Marcus struck. From behind, flanking with small teams, cutting off reinforcements. Explosions and fire lit the battlefield, but through the chaos, the Zareth troops held firm. At a critical moment, Elira saved Marcus from a direct strike. Her blade clashed with the enemy's weapon, forcing it aside. Marcus stared at her surprised, then smiled grimly. "You've learned well," he said. "And you've taught me well," she replied, voice steady. The victory. By nightfall, the enemy was broken, their lines scattered, retreating in panic. Zareth. Survivors cheered, though they were battered and exhausted. Marcus and Elira stood on a hill looking over the battlefield. Smoke and fire painted the land, but victory was theirs. The council descended, murmuring among themselves. They could not deny what they had witnessed. Humans were not weak. Humans were not predictable. Humans were dangerous, cunning, and capable of turning the tide of battle. King Vale approached his daughter, his face a mixture of pride and awe. "Elira, you have returned stronger than I could have imagined." She smiled, weary but triumphant. "I survived, Father, and I brought someone with me who saved my life, and our empire." He looked at Marcus, then back at Elira. Slowly, he nodded. "Perhaps. Humans are not what I feared." The recognition. The council held a formal meeting. Marcus Hale was recognized for his service. The Zareth Empire, cautious but honest, acknowledged that he had fought with unmatched skill and loyalty. Elira stood beside him, a symbol of trust between species. For the first time, humans and Zareth could see each other not as strangers, not as enemies, but as allies in a galaxy of uncertainty. Marcus spoke simply. "I did what anyone would do. I fought for life, for the people beside me. That is all." Elira squeezed his arm gently. "It is more than that. You have changed the Empire's view of humans forever. A new era. The war was not over, but the Zareth Empire was stronger than ever. Soldiers trained in human tactics, inspired by Marcus's methods. Elira led missions with courage and skill, earning the respect of her people. King Vale, once fearful of outsiders, now considered humans as potential allies. And Marcus. Marcus remained by Elira's side, a constant, steady presence in a world that had once seemed impossible to survive. For Elira, the princess who had been lost and found, the world had changed. And for Marcus, the human who had survived impossible odds, the galaxy had opened in ways he had never imagined. Together they had forged a new path, one that no one, not even the oldest empires of the stars, could ignore. The final symbol in the palace courtyard, Elira stood before a gathering of soldiers, nobles, and citizens. She raised her hand and the crowd fell silent. "This empire has endured because we fight together," she declared. "We have survived war, death, and despair, and today we acknowledge that strength comes not from birthright alone, but from courage, loyalty, and the willingness to fight for each other. Marcus Hale stands with me. He is a human, he is a warrior, and he is a friend to our people." Applause erupted. Cheers rang through the courtyard. Marcus, standing beside her, smiled quietly, knowing he had earned a place not just in the empire, but in history. The princess and the human, once unlikely companions, had changed the galaxy forever.